Hi everyone, I'm Joe. Today it's time for me to do my last book haul of 2020. 2020 has been pretty terrible as a year overall for several very well known reasons, of which are still ongoing at the moment. However, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and that light is not an oncoming train. It is actually hope that things will get better. I am an optimist, however, so it's easy for me to say, but things are going to get better. They always do. Although obviously we have a fairly unpleasant time ahead of us still to get there. Regardless, things will improve. And indeed, one of the things that helped me through this year is books, in particular new books, of which I've bought rather a lot more than I planned, in fact. And in fact, the first two books that I bought in 2020, I actually completely forgot to include in any book haul until now. These are actually should have been included in one of the first book hauls of the year. And the first of those books is Dragonsong, written by Anne McCaffery. Now, Anne McCaffery and the Dragon Riders of Perm books are very well known within fantasy and in fiction in general. Anne McCaffery is a very large and classic fantasy author by this point in time, and she's a very beloved author as well. I have never tried her books until now, when I have the opportunity. I've been wanting to read this ever since I've been on BookTube, especially in the last year or two, due to a friend of mine, Rachel, whom I trust really heavily. She likes these books and has talked about them, and it's made me very curious to talk about them. All I know is that they are fantasy, there are dragons, there is a large and expansive and elaborate world. The world building is apparently amazing and it sounds really fun to me, so I will happily be reading this in the fairly near future. The second book that I had from the very start of the year and forgot about is Wild Magic, written by Tamora Pierce. Now, this is the first book in the Immortals Quartet, so there is 4 of them in total. I have no idea overall what this quartet is about. I know, again, like the McCaffery book, it is a fantasy world. Tamora Pierce is held in high regard by many people on BookTube, one of them being Rachel again. I've been curious about her writing for some time because when I was growing up I had never heard of Tamora Pierce. I mean, she's an American author. She's, as far as I'm aware, not as well known, at least wasn't then, as she is now. So to me she was an unknown, and I'm just curious to see what, I know some of the people that I know grew up on these books, and I obviously was not aware that she existed, so it'd be interesting to see what I think it now as an adult compared to some of the people I knew reading it as, you know, younger people. So this should be an interesting one. They are fantasy, amazing worlds, characters, and obviously magic is involved in this. That's really all I know, and I want to keep it relatively unknown. For the record, I'm not going to be talking too much about the plot lines of any of these books because frankly I don't know them. I want to go into most of these books relatively blind, only knowing the basics. So I won't be able to describe the plot for the synopsis very well now. Anyway, the next book is a yellow book. Oh yes, it's a Masterworks. It's not going to be a book haul by maybe like a Masterworks, really. At least not for long. And that is the Andromeda Anthology, written by Fred Hoyle and John Elliot. I've known about the Andromeda books, but actually I only realised there was one of them. I didn't realise there was a sequel written for a very long time, for more than a decade. I've always been curious about them. I know that people have based movies on them in some way, and I know that it's to do with a group of scientists and a radio telescope. There is something from the Andromeda galaxy that comes to Earth, like a signal or something, and this signal affects people on Earth or something. I'm not really sure. To be honest, I don't even want to read the synopsis. But I know it's sort of classic science fiction. Obviously, this is one of the very newest books within the science fiction Masterworks, and frankly, it's an easy choice for me because masterworks are kind of my thing at this point. And indeed, the second book is also a masterwork, and this book will be very interesting to a lot of people because it is a very well-known author within science fiction, and that is Worlds of Exile and Illusion, written by Ursula Le Guin. Le Guin is a massive name within science fiction. She sadly died only a few years ago. I've been wanting to read this for some years now. This is actually a combination book of 3 of her shorter novels within the Hainish universe. The only 3 novels within the Hainish universe that I have not read at this point. Obviously, ones, well-known ones within the Hainish universe are The Left-Handed Darkness and The Dispossessed. I know, for instance, the person that I mentioned previously, Rachel, would be very interested in knowing that this is actually in the Masterworks. I was unaware that they were publishing this in the SF Masterworks until literally I was looking at books online, and then I thought, oh wow, okay, a Yellow Spine edition of this when I want to read it. This is perfect, absolutely perfect. So this is a sort of no thought involved purchase for me. It's a Hainish novel by Le Guin. I want to read it, and it's Yellow Spine. It's very simple. The next book that I'm going to talk about is The Drought, written by J.G. Ballard. J.G. Ballard is an English author. He's well known within science fiction and all the literary fiction because his novels, whilst they are science fiction, they are almost sort of a hybrid between that and more classic literary fiction, as far as I'm aware. His novels often focus on things to do with the climate change and such. So it's all like earlier climate change novels from what we know today. I mean, climate change novels today are more known. It's almost a subgenre in its own right to a certain degree. These were earlier than that. And all I know is that this is to do with water and a lack of water on Earth because we are using it for other purposes, which is actually true. And water is becoming a much scarcer commodity, which is actually true. So this should be probably quite interesting because Ballard has a way of writing. I mean, I've read several other books by him at this point, so this was an easy choice, that are remarkably forward-thinking and real, and normally a bit unsettling because you're actually dealing with issues normally that are real or could easily be real if we are not careful. So this is an interesting one, and one that I am happy to get to in the future. The next novel, and by the way, this is the last of the individual novels. After this, there are several novels, each by several different authors. But this novel is Adrift on the Sea of Rains, written by Ian Sells. This is one of the finished novels I have ever purchased. It's actually a novella, actually, to be precise. And this is part of the Apollo Quartet. So there is 3 more of these. I've been wanting to read this for a few years now, and I finally got the opportunity to because I thought it for a really good price. I'm trying to find the other 3 for a good price as well, but frankly, for some reason, since I bought this first book, the other 3 have suddenly increased in price on virtually every website I've gone on. So it's a bit annoying, frankly. This is a nuclear war breaks out on Earth. Humanity, or at least a few people from humanity, are on the moon at the time when nuclear war breaks out, and they see the war basically breaking out, and they see humanity and Earth destroying itself, and they can't do anything about it because they're stuck on another planet. So they are just watching, helpless, and this is about them, what they are going to try and do to recover from this. And this is a novella though, so it's quite short, and I'm not going to say anything more about it now, but there is 3 more of them which I would definitely want to read. Next we get onto the novels that are by the same few sets of authors, and the first of those is Red Moon, written by Kim Stanley Robinson. Kim Stanley Robinson is an author that, if you've watched my videos before, you will be familiar with because he's well known within science fiction as well. He is a long-running author. He's been writing for at this point close over 30 years as far as I'm aware, maybe even close to the 40 mark, I don't know at this point. But he's a well-known author within science fiction. One of the things he's well known for writing about, and indeed this novel does somewhat feature on, is either climate change and also space exploration on other worlds. And this one does the other worlds aspect, where they go to the moon, unsurprisingly. The red of the title refers to the fact that this is both American and Chinese astronauts on the moon, so there is political tension there, and events unfold. I do not know very much about it, and I don't want to. It's Kim Stanley Robinson. He's a very reliable science fiction author to me personally. There's only been one of his books that I thought were sort of only halfway. Most of his books have actually been very, very good overall. So I am happy to get to reading this in the very near future. The next book is actually 3 books, and is actually a complete trilogy, also by Kim Stanley Robinson, and that is the Science in the Capital trilogy, which contains 40 Signs of Rain, 50 Degrees Below, and 60 Days and Counting. These are a trilogy that you can buy in a combined omnibus trilogy, which is called the Green Earth. I don't know why it's called the Green Earth as an omnibus when that's not the name of the trilogy, or those words do not appear in any of the titles. I'm not sure. I did not want these books in that omnibus trilogy though, because that omnibus trilogy is absolutely massive. I've actually seen it in person in bookshops last year, and I decided then that I wanted to read it, but I do not want to read that edition because it's very large and very heavy. I wanted to read the smaller, slightly smaller, individual books that make up it. These are, as I've said before, as you would expect from Robinson, climate change science fiction. It's set in America. It's scientists and such related to the US government. The US government doesn't believe in climate change. Yeah, that's familiar. And scientists are actually trying to say, you know, climate change does actually exist. It's not a myth. And various people in government are being stupid and not believing them. Yeah, I could comment on that as well, but I'm not going to. And these are an interesting trilogy, and ones that I've been wanting to get to for some time, frankly, because I've read more than half of his works by now. I think I've actually read maybe most of it, I'm not actually sure, because he has wrote a lot of books by this point, and I'm very eager to get to these. And a point of note that these are remarkably heavy books physically for their size. I have compared these to other books of exactly the same width and height, and these are at least 3 times heavier. So the paper in these books must be very heavy, dense paper, because they are strangely heavy. The next set of books are all by Ryan Bradbury. Ryan Bradbury is a very well known author within science fiction and within literary fiction as well. The 3 books I have by him are The October Country, not bought because of Halloween, it just was coincidental that it was just on Halloween and I bought that. One More for the Road, again not intentionally bought for that reason. And The Halloween Tree. Yeah, I honestly didn't buy these just because of the Halloween connection. I just so happened that these are the 3 that I haven't got yet by him, and I'm trying to essentially read everything by Bradbury over time. And a friend of mine, Andrea, she reminded me that that Ray Bradbury exists, because I kind of overlooked him for a while now. So I considered that yes, I should probably read some more Ray Bradbury and get on with my project of reading everything by him. These are all sort of science fiction / horror, sort of a hybrid. Ray Bradbury has a phenomenal way with words and a very strong writing style, which personally works for me. He's a very classic and very beloved author. I have loved everything by Ray Bradbury. His short stories are phenomenal, and I know these short stories will also be phenomenal because it's Ray Bradbury. He's never put a foot wrong for me ever. Yeah, so he's one of the very few authors that literally has never gone wrong for me so far. Hopefully these books hold up to that, and he maintains a perfect record for me personally, because it would be nice to have that with an author. It's very rare to get that. So if I can get a sort of perfect record with Ray Bradbury, that'd be impressive. The next set of books is a set of 5, although they are not related to one another directly, and that is 5 books by Stanislaw Lem. Now, these 5 books are Hospital of the Transfiguration. This is actually one of Lem's earliest published novels, and it's actually not science fiction in the slightest. This was actually literary fiction. When he wrote this, however, he had issues getting it published because of the subject matter of it, dealt with real life things, and obviously he had to suffer through World War II. So after that, he realised that if he made his books basically more science fiction based, he could still get them published and still talk about the same subjects, just with a slightly altered plotline, a slightly, sort of fake or unrealistic plotline. But it's obvious what all of his novels are referring to. The second novel is Return from the Stars. The third is The Invincible. I've been wanting to read this for a very long time, for more than a decade, because this was the first novel that I heard about by Lem, recommended to me from the same friend that actually created and sort of gave me the initial nickname of FinalBlowJoe, which I did a video about a few months ago, which I'll link in the description box below. So this book has been important to read because it was the last book he ever suggested to me, and I've been wanting to read this really badly for a very long time. Now I finally can. Then we have His Master's Voice, and finally we have Memoirs of a Space Traveller. These 5 books are all brand new published, all by MIT Press, which is a university press. MIT University is a very well known one in America and globally as well. It's one of the big global well known universities. It is a technology and science based university. They do indeed publish novels. These are translated fiction, Polish, from the Polish, and Lem is an author that I've been reading slowly and although considerably faster over the course of this year. I did read a few in the last few years as well, and frankly I'm very much getting into his way of writing. He has a very interesting way of writing and a very curious sense of humour that just really work for me, and it just makes me smile when I read his books because his sense of humour is bizarre and his characters and his worlds are weird as well, but they just work for me and obviously work for a lot of other people because he's a popular author, and I'm very happy that I've got all 5 of these. There will be a couple more published by him by MIT Press as well, I believe in 2021, so this will not be the last books in this design. For the record, I think these are really nice looking. They should be, they're kind of expensive. Anyway, the last set of books that I have, I actually cannot hold up in one go because they are too big and too heavy. But I'm very happy to have these, and those books are Rising Steam by Terry Pratchett. This is one of the Discworld Library collector's editions. Snuff by Terry Pratchett, again one of the Discworld collector's editions, and the last one that I actually needed. The next novel is indeed going to be familiar, but for slightly different reasons, and that is The We Three Men by Pratchett. Now this matches size-wise the Discworld collector's editions. However, the 5 novels that make up this particular design, the Tiffany Aching sub-series within the Discworld novels, are classed as young adult. All the other Discworld novels are classed as fantasy primary. This is young adult fantasy. I assume something to do with publishing rights and such, that they cannot publish these 5 Tiffany Aching books in this edition line with these covers and spines. However, they do match, at least on a shelf, because they're exactly the same size and width pretty much, so I'm quite happy that I've got these. And the other 4 books that I have to show you are The Shepherd's Crown, which is actually the last Discworld novel ever wrote before Terry Pratchett sadly died. A Hat Full of Sky. Wintersmith I'm now having trouble piling these up because they're starting to slide all over the place. And I Shall Wear Midnight. These 7 books, which I cannot hold up because I will drop them all over the floor, I have been wanting to get for a very long time. Basically, years ago, I've always loved Discworld novels ever since I was a child. I literally learnt to read on Discworld. However, years ago, my Discworld collection became broken as such because I had them in both 2 types of paperback editions and 2 types of hardback editions, and that bothered me, so I stopped buying them. Now I have the entire Discworld series in either the Discworld Collector's editions or these 5 for the Tiffany Aching books, which close enough to match. And I'm very happy that I have them, especially now, because for the record, in a few weeks' time there will be a video where I'm going to be featuring these, because I'm doing a very large reading project basically in 2021 where I'm going to be reading through these books. So if you ever wanted to read the 2 Pratchett books, keep your eyes open on my channel because I'm reading through all of them come next year. So with that said, that is actually it for all of the books that remains for me to show you of 2020. 2021 will equally be a fantastic year for both, the world and globally, I believe, and also for books. If you've read any of these or would like to, then please leave a comment and we can have a discussion. Obviously, if you have any suggestions on books you think I might enjoy based on these, then again, please leave a comment, because I'm always interested in getting into new authors and new books by authors that I may have overlooked. All my social media links, as well as links to all of the books that I talked about in this video, which will be a long list, can be found in the description box above. And with that said, that is it for this video. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you another day. Bye for now.